The usually smooth and predictable world of late-night television took a shocking turn when veteran actor Eric Roberts made an appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, only to erupt into an unexpected and fiery outburst that left both the audience and Colbert himself in complete disbelief. Eric, known for his long and colorful career in Hollywood as well as his outspoken personality, arrived on set with what seemed to be good spirits, cracking a few light jokes during the opening banter. But things took a dark and intense turn when Colbert shifted the conversation toward some of the more controversial chapters of Eric's career and personal life, especially regarding his alleged past conflicts with directors and rumors of substance abuse that had plagued him during the 80s and 90s. At first, Eric laughed it off, brushing aside the pointed questions with charm. But as Colbert pressed on with unusually direct comments that hinted at career self-sabotage and burned bridges, in Hollywood, the mood soured fast. Eric's smile faded, his body stiffened, and his responses grew sharper, less controlled. The audience, sensing the rising tension, began to grow quieter, their laughter thinning out as they realized this was no ordinary celebrity interview. Colbert, who is famous for mixing comedy with uncomfortable truth, seemed to push Eric harder than usual, asking about old stories of fights on set, shouting matches with producers, and rumors of being difficult to work with. Eric finally snapped, back with biting sarcasm, saying, "It's funny how these old legends keep being dragged out every time I sit in one of these chairs." His tone was sharp, the smile gone, and his eyes locked with Colbert's in an expression that was no longer playful but clearly irritated.
"Out still."
Colbert pressed on, asking whether Eric regretted any of the choices that allegedly made him Hollywood's bad boy for a time. That was the spark that lit the fuse. Eric leaned forward, his voice low and tight, warning Colbert to watch where the conversation was going if he didn't want to see the real Eric Roberts come out on live television. It was at that moment that Colbert, sensing that he'd crossed a serious line but not backing down, dropped the bombshell question that no one expected. He bluntly asked Eric whether the long-standing rumor that he had deliberately sabotaged his own chances at bigger stardom out of jealousy toward his famous sister, Julia Roberts, was true. The entire room froze. Gasps could be heard from the audience, and even the band stopped playing its quiet background tune. Eric's face turned visibly red, his hand clenching the edge of his chair so hard his knuckles whitened. "Are you really going there?" Eric growled, his voice low but loaded with fury. The tension was so thick that you could feel it through the screen. The smile on Colbert's face faded for a moment as he realized the magnitude of the moment. But Eric wasn't done. He exploded with a tirade, calling out the media for endlessly repeating the same tired narrative about him and his sister, denying any jealousy, and accusing Hollywood gossip of ruining relationships and reputations for profit. The crowd was silent, unsure whether to clap, gasp, or just sit in stunned quiet as Eric's rant gained momentum. "I've worked for 4 decades in this business," he roared, pointing a finger at Colbert, "and all anyone ever asks about is Julia. Why not ask me about the 500 films I've done? Why not ask about my Emmy nomination, my Golden Globe? Nods of the directors who loved working with me?" Colbert, attempting to regain control of the situation, muttered that he meant no offense, but Eric wasn't having it. "No offense?" Eric snapped. "That's easy for you to say. You've never had your entire career boiled down to your sister's shadow?" The audience was squirming in their seats by now, some whispering nervously, others wide-eyed and clutching their phones, perhaps texting about the unfolding drama. Eric threw up his hands in frustration, his body language loud and aggressive, making it painfully clear that he felt deeply insulted and ambushed. Trying to salvage the moment. Colbert attempted a softer approach, saying he admired Eric's body of work and thought the audience deserved to know the full story of such a long career. But this only seemed to inflame Eric further. He mocked Colbert's attempt at sympathy, accusing him of setting the whole thing up for ratings and shock value. "You wanted a viral moment, Colbert? Congratulations, you just got it." Eric spat, his voice shaking with anger. The tension had reached a breaking point now. Everyone in the room could feel it. Some audience members nervously laughed, unsure whether to take Eric seriously or if this was all some elaborate late-night sketch. But Eric's face, flushed and furious, told everyone this was no act. This was real, raw, and explosive. Colbert, clearly regretting his line of questioning, but stuck in the live format, could only sit in awkward silence as Eric's tirade continued, laying bare years of resentment and frustration built up over decades in the industry. Suddenly, Eric stood up from his chair, ripping off his microphone and tossing it onto the desk with a loud clatter that echoed through the stunned studio. "I don't need this crap," he barked, turning toward the audience. "I came here to talk about my new movie. My work, not to be dragged through the mud again, like I'm some kind of joke." The gasps from the audience were audible, some people covering their mouths in disbelief as Eric stormed toward the edge of the stage. Colbert, flustered and trying to salvage the show, called after him, asking him to stay and finish the interview properly. But Eric shot him a glare so intense it stopped Colbert mid-sentence. The camera crew, unsure whether to follow or cut to commercial, kept rolling as Eric waved angrily at the crowd and muttered something under his breath that the microphones couldn't quite pick up, something that sounded a lot like "This is why I hate these shows." And with that, he vanished behind the stage curtain, leaving chaos in his wake. Backstage. Reports later surfaced that Eric was seen yelling at production staff, accusing the show's producers of setting him up for humiliation. He was heard telling his publicist that this was exactly why he rarely did talk shows anymore, muttering that Hollywood would never let him escape the shadow of his more famous sibling, no matter how much he accomplished. Meanwhile, on set, Colbert sat stunned at his desk, nervously joking to the audience about how that wasn't on the cue cards, trying to diffuse the awkward atmosphere. But the damage had been done. Viewers at home flooded social media instantly, with clips of Eric's outbursts going viral within minutes. Twitter hashtags like #EricRobertsMeltdown and #ColbertShowdown were trending globally, as the footage sparked endless debate among fans, critics, and entertainment insiders. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, some saying Eric was right to stand up for himself, others accusing him of being unprofessional and overly sensitive. The fallout from the explosive moment continued into the following day. Major entertainment news outlets ran with the story, publishing headlines like "Eric Roberts storms off Colbert's set after on-air ambush," and "Eric Roberts finally snaps over Julia Roberts' questions." Opinion pieces poured in, with some writers defending Eric as a misunderstood Hollywood survivor who had every right to defend his career, while others criticized him for not handling the pressure with more grace. Meanwhile, Eric's representatives released a terse statement, blaming the show's producers for blindsiding him with inappropriate questions and breaking their pre-show agreement to focus on his new film project. Colbert's team, on the other hand, insisted that all topics had been approved in advance, setting off a behind-the-scenes war of words about who was really to blame for the confrontation that had gripped the entertainment world. Even Julia Roberts herself was dragged into the mess, paparazzi catching her leaving a restaurant in Los Angeles and asking for her reaction to her brother's televised meltdown. Julia reportedly refused to comment, waving off reporters with a tight smile but looking visibly uncomfortable. Family insiders whispered to tabloids that the siblings hadn't spoken in months, and this public blow-up would only deepen the rift. Meanwhile, other celebrities weighed in on social media, some expressing sympathy for Eric and criticizing late-night shows for exploiting guests, while others simply joked about the chaos. The incident sparked wider conversations about how talk shows treat their guests, especially those with troubled pasts or complicated personal histories. Media analysts debated whether this moment would damage Colbert's reputation or make Eric Roberts a more sympathetic figure in the public eye, someone brave enough to call out the machine live on air.